Um, we intend to, connect people to the word, the world, and just, connect people to the community as well. So we are super excited, and we officially launched our live stream on March 1st of this year. It took 9 months of planning, and we'll get into that a little bit more later.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you, Michael. We're glad you're here. Uh, Next panelist I want to introduce is Paul Huyghebaert with Grace Chapel Church of Christ. Paul, same thing. Tell us a little bit about Grace Chapel, your role there,
Sure.
and some demographics about the congregation.
Yeah, so I serve as lead minister at Grace Chapel. I have been there roughly 5 years. We've been live streaming for 3 of those years. We're a church with roughly 700 members, a little over 700 members. We started our live stream primarily as an effort to reach out to folks who couldn't make it for whatever reason. Then it became something a little bit more produced, where we're trying to reach out and engage the community as well. It was for us, for many, kind of the first touch point with the church, as people would kind of come and check you out virtually before they were checking you out by being in your physical space. Obviously, in this last few weeks, we have had to transition to something entirely different, where we're now, I preach on Sunday, so I'm preaching to an empty space. A worship team singing to an empty space. We're an a cappella Church of Christ, and so that brings with it some interesting and unique challenges at times. But we have, I think, 3 weeks in at this point in time, we've really overcome a lot of the hurdles, I think, that we initially faced in trying to figure out how do we take what we've been doing, a regular kind of week-to-week live streaming product, and transition it to now we're an online-only church at this point in time. And so those have been some of the unique challenges that we're facing and what we're trying to get through. But I think we were well set up to make that jump, and so glad to be here as one of the panelists.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paul. And last but definitely not least is a panelist that's playing a dual role today, Todd Bethel, who is not only an AV systems engineer with Atlanta Soundworks, but he is also a tech volunteer at his congregation. So, Todd, tell us a little bit about your role at your congregation and some of the demographics as well.
Sure, Chris, and welcome everybody. Like Chris said, I play 2 roles, engineer as well as end user. I'm the media director at Limitless Church in Fayetteville, Georgia. I came on board about 4 years ago, and so the church was already streaming, so I kind of inherited what was already in place. The church is roughly about, 700 to 1,000 members. And contemporary style of worship, some gospel as well. So it's very, high energy ministry. My pastor travels a lot, so she's known around the world. And so there's a huge presence in terms of our streaming capability and audience. So my role there is basically, I kind of assist with the production team on given Sundays, just to kind of get the stream working properly, making sure everything is in order in terms of people as well as equipment. But our roles kind of changed over the last couple of weeks because of all the coronavirus stuff going on. So we've kind of had to rethink some things as far as how we're approaching our streams. And so we're kind of doing more of a contemporary, more of a laid back setting now for more of an intimate setting. So we're kind of not necessarily streaming from the church now, we're streaming from different locations. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but it's actually been kind of a fun experience. But that's what I'm doing right now.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. So if you've joined us, you could tell we've got a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge on this panel. So panelists, the first question I've got for you is, what were some of the biggest challenges you had in moving to a fully online service rather than just streaming the service, a traditional service? And how did you navigate through those waters?
Yeah, I don't mind jumping in on that one. as I touched on already, I think we had the transition or the challenge of transitioning technology from, for us, what was from a large space. We were using our sanctuary auditorium for our worship experience on Sunday mornings, streaming from there before. We decided to try to scale down the environment a little bit, as Todd, I think, was describing as well to some degree. And so we had the challenge of moving some of our equipment, some of what we used from our main auditorium into our youth room, our youth auditorium, and then trying to also create environment in there that for us seemed appropriate to what we were doing. And so we went from a very typical Sunday morning church setup to trying to create a living room feel and space with a small stage space as well as part of that. And I think learning, as you already touched on, Chris, how to go from just live streaming what you were doing on a typical Sunday morning to now actually creating something that looks more like a production. You walk into our youth room, it looks more like it's a news set than what it was we'd use on Sunday mornings and Sunday nights with our teens there. And so it really is. It's been shifting gears, and also I think the biggest challenge is, for us, I don't remember, we had 3-4 days, I think, in which we made the first live stream happen. As the order came down, the guidelines, no more than 10 folks in a room. And so making that transition, making it quickly, and then also noticing by the second week, I said we have a membership a little over 700. By that second week, we were reaching nearly 2,000 folks with a stream that prior to that, we weren't reaching nearly that folks. So now we have a much larger platform. And so wanting to step up the quality of that too, to make sure that you keep engaging those folks. And so that's presented a number of unique challenges, but I think that kind of sums it up for us to this point.
Thanks, Paul. Michael, you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. When we were testing our streaming, we're in 2 separate buildings from our sanctuary. The difference was we were only streaming what was going on in the sanctuary. So my thought was, okay, we're not the Elevation, we're not the big churches where we can have multiple live cameras and live people present to do those transitions. So what we decided to come up with was pre-recording those transitions, welcomes, going into worship, coming out of worship, giving, and closing it up at the end. So we decided to start filming those ahead of time. And that's a part of our staff and some of our lay leaders that jump in and kind of fill those roles. So that way, what was going on in the service was meant for the folks that were in the service. Those that were online are getting a totally different experience online. So having all that content ready to go Thursday for worship practice, that was a challenge as well. And testing all of that out, running producer comms to the instruments and the band and the vocalists. So that was something for them to get used to, as well as us calling out our cues to them, letting them know that we're live, we're not live, we've gone to a little break, here's offering time, stand by, those type of things. So the biggest challenge was definitely pre-recording that content to making the service totally geared to online folks and making it have, lame terms, meat, making the entire service feel like it was put together very well. Instead of beforehand, we were just streaming whatever was going on in the sanctuary. If we went to a greeting time, a slide went up and then we went back. And so we have a lot more pre-recorded things and also live elements and content throughout the service now.
Thank you, Michael. Todd, what about you guys? What have y'all done over there?
Yeah, it's been interesting for us. Our first round with the COVID experience was going live, but we found out that was very difficult, and then we had some issues with the stream going down. And so my pastor's kind of taken a different approach. We've kind of discussed it. So what we're doing now is we're actually doing pre-recorded content it's all pre-recorded, and she's basically streaming, not streaming, but we're recording from her living room with a select few of, a few people from the praise team, and basically more of a couch type of intimate setting. So we're gonna be doing that over the next couple of weeks, and then trying that out and seeing how well that fares. But yeah, we've kind of totally transitioned from a live setting to more of a pre-recorded setting for right now. We'll see how things turn out. So, but that's kind of what we're doing to handle the current circumstances. And our live stream audience is actually larger than those that really attend the services. So we have a huge audience, and we did it this past Sunday. We did the first pre-recorded service, and it was well received. So we'll see how things go over the next few weeks.
Thank you, Todd. I was going to ask Paul if you could speak to some of the changes that Grace Chapel has made in using those pre-recorded elements as well.
Yeah, we've gone to kind of a mixture of pre-recorded elements and then live elements. And, I think there's, as you can already see with what Michael is pointing to and what Todd is pointing to, there are different ways of doing this, and multiple different ways can work. For us, we've kind of tried to split the middle for now, but we don't know what's coming. There may be more restrictions down the pike if there's a stay-at-home order issued here in Georgia, and some folks watching maybe in different states where that's already happened, it could change for us. But where we are right now is we've kind of settled on a system in which we are pre-recording several of the elements. We've pre-recorded the worship team. We pre-recorded last week Thought for Communion. And several other things, that we're trying to promote as well. We use Right Now Media, and some of your folks that are listening today may be familiar with that. And so we take time to promote some things that happen in Right Now Media so that our folks can continue to stay connected. All of that stuff is pre-recorded. So last week, all we had that was actually live was the welcome and the closing, which we use an MC format for that, and then the actual message portion. And so it's then learning how to transition between the pre-recorded and the live elements, and looking for a light on a camera to make sure that okay, camera's on, you're ready to roll, and making those transitions happen well. So that has to do with that obviously there's a tech response, and then there's also your actual live person on stage that has to be ready to make that happen and bring those things together. So for us, using that blended format actually worked out very well. There's definitely a fair amount of prep work, and I'm sure Todd and Michael could both speak to that, in going into making sure that there are pre-recorded elements that you've got staged. But that then also gives you a chance to produce those elements a little bit more, which is nice. And then you on the other side still have this live feel to several of the things that are happening. If something happened on Saturday evening, we could potentially speak into that on Sunday morning. So again, there's multiple ways to make it happen. That just so happens that probably this is where we're going to sit, unless again there's a tightening of restrictions, and then we're figuring it out all over again. Trying to make adjustments on the fly if we need to.
So, gentlemen, what and I thank you for that, and hopefully for those of you that are tuned in, you can see we've got a pretty good spectrum of congregational size, styles of worship. Panelists, what are some specific techniques that you're using with your online audience to try to engage them, rather than it just being sit back, a passive activity, to make this an engaging time of worship with the congregation?
Yeah, I can speak to that. As folks are commenting and in our chats on our stream, we have one of our staff or lay leaders responding back to them. But also within the stream, we're also pushing people to go to our website and fill out that digital connection card that they would usually fill out in service. So just kind of keeping a routine with them. And so, hey, go ahead and fill out that connection card, your prayer request, your praise report. How can we support you, and how can we be here for you, during this time?
Thank you, Michael. Paul?
Yeah, I think we're doing something similar in that, is that we're trying to have a couple of folks. I've jumped on myself, during the pre-recorded elements and done some engaging with people. back and forth. We're trying to also provide resources during that time. And so, we use a small group format typically where, we've got, I think, 30 plus adult small groups that get together throughout the week, and we push small group questions that are attached to messages out to them weekly. We've been using our time and engagement, our opportunity to engage, to say, hey, these small group questions are coming. We're calling them follow-up questions now, because if people are meeting with small groups, it's like we're doing today, using Zoom or a GoToMeeting or Google Hangouts, different things like that, different mediums to get together and discuss things, and that's working out for what I hear from quite a few of our small groups quite well. But we are trying to help folks not just connect with us, but stay connected with each other. We've also, through Facebook Live, encouraged people to host watch parties, which has been really neat. As you're watching the live stream developing and you're seeing, hey, this person just started a watch party, they're inviting some of their friends in. Then you can see within that watch party, some of their friends start to comment. And there are people that are connected with the church sometimes not connected with the church. And so it definitely gives you the opportunity to try to make connections in a virtual way, so that when this is all done, we can be at a place where not only have we maintained the connectedness that we had at the church before we entered into this mess, but hopefully created some new connections and maybe strengthened some of the bonds that actually existed, that already existed. And so, we're trying to encourage our folks, not just us to interact with them, but also for them to interact with each other, certainly commenting, engaging, pulling them into things, asking questions during time of message. Those are many different ways to kind of pull people in and have them respond while those things are taking place.
Yeah, I love that, especially the horizontal aspect that you mentioned of encouraging the congregation to engage with one another, maintain that sense of community. Todd, what are some of the things that you guys are doing to create that engagement? It sounds like you're on the larger end of the spectrum, not only with the audience, but also from a congregation standpoint.
Yeah, we definitely monitor our Facebook comments, also our website. So we're constantly, we have a minister that's dedicated strictly for that, just monitoring the comments and responding to some of the needs of those that are watching. And we've recently started in going into establishing an online church, an online ministry that's going to be really dedicated to reaching out to all of our viewers and those who have needs, and then present that back to the leadership of the church. So that's kind of fairly new. It's kind of in development now, but we've been working on that over the last few weeks, because like I said before, our online presence is gigantic, and we're finding that there are a lot of needs out there, and people are watching from all over the world for that matter. And so it's been humbling, but it's just been wonderful to see the need that's really out there through the stream. Before, live streaming was just more like, we'll send out a stream out there for those that can't attend church, maybe on this given Sunday. But now it's kind of turned out to a full-blown ministry. And so we're realizing that and trying to find ways to be able to meet the needs of the people that are watching. Because some people, like I said, some people are living somewhere out that may not be attending a traditional local church, and so this is where they're getting their word from there and be ministered to. And so we want to make sure that we cater and meet their needs as well. So that's kind of new for us, but at a minimum, we've definitely been monitoring all of our social media platforms as far as watching and listening and responding to those that are part of the stream, their experience.
Yeah, it's great that now, and that's a great segue, Todd. Thank you. So many of the tools that were beyond reach for especially more of the small and mid-sized congregations, to be able to do that outreach, to be able to broadcast and reach out to a larger community. So many of those tools have been brought within reach now. I want to kind of transition that direction now. And one thing that's probably very important to our listeners is, when it comes to giving, what are some efforts you've done to maintain or try to maintain the level of giving that you had during the corporate times of worship when you were meeting in person through this new channel?
Yeah, I'll jump on that real quickly. um, Convenience is key, period. You want to make it as convenient for the person who wants to give. And so we've set up a couple of platforms to do that. We have the traditional online, a page that you go to the website and you can, give there. We set up text to give. So, if a person uses a number that we give out, and they can text that. And once they set it up, it's, all you got to do is it's almost like Cash App. You just put in a number and it's automatically done. So we got a couple of avenues for our listeners and our viewers to be able to give. But like I said before, the key thing is making it very, very convenient. You don't want them just sifting through multiple pages on your website to find the giving links. We make that one of the areas that they can get to. So anyway, that's like I said before, the convenience is key as far as doing that and setting up that platform.
Yeah, I think that's very similar to the approach that we have taken as well. As Todd said, convenience is definitely key. Making sure that we engage for the sake of saying, hey, those we know a lot of people are interested in giving. We're also very sensitive to the fact that a lot of people have lost their jobs, are on furlough, laid off at this point in time, and so we don't want to over push giving at this point. In fact, we're also looking for opportunities that we can find to give back. But we know there are quite a few that here, especially at our local congregation, have the resources to continue giving at this point. And, we believe that giving is actually an opportunity for us to all engage in a way that spiritually makes us humble, brings us under the submission of God and his leadership. And so we continue to believe that's a very important spiritual practice. And so we have been using a service called ClearGive for quite a few years at this point in time. ClearGive is a great service. They've actually stepped up their game as well. It probably, if those who are representing churches that are listening, you probably noticed if you're using an online giving service, they've probably tried to step up their game. And if they haven't, maybe it's time to consider a new service. I don't know, but ClearGive has really opened up some avenues for us. Also, we use an online church database support called Touchpoint. Touchpoint has even come to us and said, here's what we're doing to make deposits easier. And so we've got the ability to, you can go to our website, you can give there. Text to give is something that's doable through ClearGive. We're even telling folks, we've got some older folks who just aren't going to go that direction and aren't going to embrace technology. Hey, if you want to send a check to the office, that's fine. We'll find out a way to get that and find a way to get those deposited. But again, giving is not less important as a spiritual practice. We often think about, giving for the sake of supporting the church, and that's really important. Please, Grace Chapel folks continue to give, but we also believe it's a very important spiritual practice and spiritual discipline, and we want to give people the opportunity to continue to engage that way. And so technology definitely allows for that. Snail mail does too, and so we're giving people the option for both of those.
Yeah, likewise with what everyone said. Text to give, online giving, giving is another act of worship, and we also let everyone know that ministry doesn't stop, even though that we are in, this state of time that we're living in. But also our missionaries, the missionaries that are overseas, they're still continuing to preach the word of God and get the word out there. So we encourage everyone, and like Todd said, we don't press it, but we just kind of remind people that, that we're here for you, and the church still operates, and that we're going to continue to give faithfully unto God, no matter what.
Well, thank you very much. I know that's something that's very important to our attendees and different sizes of congregations that they represent. So I want to pivot now into the technology that you're using to support your stream and your online service production. So let's start with Michael, and then we'll go to Todd, and then we'll wrap up with Paul on this segment with what technology. Share with our attendees a little bit about your setup and how the tools that you use for your production each week.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, from our front of house in our main sanctuary, we're running Dante for all the audio, and for all the video, we're running SDI through fiber to the production room. Also, we're running XLR comms for our comm viewers, and we're also using the network for ProPresenter to network from both computers to kind of minimize the amount of operators at this time being in the buildings. In our production room, as you can see behind me, we have a separate console and a separate operator to mix everything that's going out, as well as a live stream studio. It's a full switcher. It takes in and out video content. And so we push everything through the different platforms through live stream. And we have another machine that pushes the lyrics and some of the pre-recorded videos through ProPresenter over to live stream and taking it at that point. Very simple production setup, not cheap, but simple, cheap-ish setup. 2 flat screens. One is doing the program, and then the other has all of the inputs that the switcher can take as the TD calls for what they're looking for. Right now we have one high definition, 4K production camera, and more on the way, just to kind of get different angles. This past Sunday we connected 4 tablets to live stream. Live stream uses remote technology over Wi-Fi to deliver those signals back to the production room, and those were pretty good for this Sunday. But this next week we'll have better cameras, and the flow has been great. We have not had any issues since we've been up. Besides just kind of getting used to communicating to each other in different buildings, so which has been pretty good. And obviously the team has grown since we've done that. So I love the setup. Love using live stream. I've used Wirecast in the past, but nothing like having everything in one platform and controlling everything from one area.
Michael, man, you have a real nice setup, man. I won't classify that as cheap. Some people are probably drooling over it. Oh, my setup is not as extravagant. The challenge that I have with our setup is its resources. We don't have a whole lot of our production team is very small, and so but we have great capability. We have 3 cameras that are on tripods. We're using a Blackmagic production switcher. We're using ProPresenter. We got 2 Behringer boards. Now, the other challenge that I have is that everything's co-located in the front of the house. And I've been really pressing our leadership to see if we can move the video production portion of it into a separate room so we can just have better isolation. But we're not there yet. So everything's in one location, which makes it kind of tough. But like I said before, we have two separate mixes. We have a Behringer X32 dedicated for the house mix. And then we have another small compact Behringer X32 that we mix strictly for the video stream. And I want to make this a good point, is that you definitely, if you're getting started in streaming, you definitely want to have a separate mix from your house mix. You can do a house mix, but it's not going to be as good because you're dealing with all the acoustics of the room, of the space. So you want to definitely have a dedicated a mixer for your stream. And it's ideally located not in the in the same area as the worship space. It should be in a separate room, but we have to make do with what we have. But like I said before, we're using 2 cameras, and we basically using a Blackmagic switcher to switch between the 2. And we were using Wirecast as our encoder on a PC, an i7 PC platform, but we were having some difficulties with it because we were basically streaming to multiple portals through Wirecast, which is a kind of cool thing to have. But the limitation there is that you need more processing power on your workstation, as well as the bandwidth to be able to support, the streams to Facebook, to YouTube, to Periscope, and to the website. So we were sending out those streams in multiple locations, of course, and then we're dividing up the bandwidth between all those streams. And so we recently migrated to a cloud-based solution, which is a Boxcast. And there are several companies out there that do that, but we chose Boxcast because it was an easy platform to kind of get going. So now all we do is they gave us a free encoder, and we basically just take that encoder and apply our stream to that. I mean, our video to that, and that sends one stream to the cloud, and then they do all the transcoding to get it to the YouTubes, to the Facebook lives and so forth. So it's made it a whole lot easier in terms of streaming overall. The other thing too that we've kind of going through a transition is lighting. Lighting is crucial. You can have the best equipment in the world, but if your lighting's poor, it's gonna look horrible. And so we're kind of retrofitting our sanctuary lighting into LED. We were using incandescent bulbs before, your traditional old PARs, but now we're kind of migrating over to LED lights to kind of enhance the overall experience. So that's kind of basically what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks. Like I said, and by the way, we are using ProPresenter as our graphics computer, and so we just feed that into the production switch, and we switch between the two, and then sometimes we do layering with overlays and so forth. But yeah, that's kind of our setup for right now. But I'm really stressing on trying to move the video production portion of it beyond outside of the sanctuary area.
Excellent. Well, I'll jump in, and I think actually just saw Pastor Jerry's question, and I think I may be able to even answer some of that based upon what we do at Grace Chapel. We definitely have a simpler setup in some ways than what the two guys here have described to this point, because again, we've repurposed a lot of stuff. Of course, Todd is kind of saying the same thing, repurposing a number of things. I think Michael, you guys have kind of maintained still using your equipment in your sanctuary, and then obviously your video room. It's new to you guys. It's really top, high-end equipment, so that's great. I'm not going to be able to speak quite as technically as these guys do, which for some of you guys that may be great, and others you maybe want more detail, and we can find a way to make that happen too. Just probably not with me as the communicator. But we have been using, since we started streaming, a very simple platform called Sling Studio. Sling Studio is a great little hub that can tie in wireless devices. Pastor Jerry was asking about how can you maybe tie in multiple cameras, and not just multiple cameras, but then a feed into that as well. Sling Studio actually allows for that for, I think, roughly beginning, it's like $1,000, $1,500 somewhere in there, and it gives you a wireless hub that then actually brings all your video signal together and then pushes it out to whatever platforms you're pushing it to. Similarly to these two other guys, we're pushing to one particular platform that then sends our feed to multiple other platforms, which gives us the feed at Facebook Live, at YouTube. We got feed going on at Vimeo. For us, also gracechapel.live, which is connected to our website as well. That's where we push people from our website. That allows folks to go and actually access the stream. We've used multiple different tools. We have used, as Jerry asked the question, or Jerry made the statement about an iPhone. We've used iPhone 11s as part of our video equipment to get just another angle that you might flip over to for just a little bit. I think I mentioned already we used the PTZ optics cameras in the main sanctuary, but we did not feel that we wanted to take those down and repurpose those at this point and move them. So we left them where they were. We've used a number of different cameras. We used the Sling Studio hub that allows you to take a camera, for example, a DSLR, Canon Mark 5Ds. We used this past week. We were able to take those, and by using, I think it's a mini or micro HDMI cord to an HDMI, patch those into the wireless hub, which then sends it to Sling Studio, connects that back in. All of our sound, we do work through a board. We do use ProPresenter. I think we're running that. I think we're running that video feed from that computer straight into the Sling Studio hub, if I remember correctly. Then that's all getting pushed to another computer where we're controlling what's actually been going out through the Sling Studio to the audience that's watching. But that's basically, my understanding of how we're doing what we're doing. It, it, it probably, to me, I remember when we were researching, we decided to go this direction because honestly, we were looking for something that was simple and easy and that we would be able to figure out. It's not where we're going to stay forever. We are going to make a transition to different equipment at some point in time, but right now I think we've been happy that we have Sling Studio because it has allowed us to very quickly and easily transport what we were doing in one place to another space. We've also, by the way, been able to take Sling Studio and use it in people's homes when we're recording. We recorded communion at a home where a family took communion together. We used that as our communion element this past Sunday. We had 4 different cameras running through the Sling Studio hub and able to actually do editing on the fly. You can actually do it with an iPad even. You can switch back and forth between your cameras, and it allowed for that, which was pretty neat as well, that we were able to take that so easily portable into another place and use it there as well. So that's something that might be worth checking out if you've got, if you're just using an iPhone right now, but you want to keep it basic with other iPhones. That's a great way to do it. That's a great way to do it. And then you can run Pro Presenter right into the Sling Studio and go from there.
Yeah, as you can hear, there's a lot of ways to do this, and I think the main thing is you want to be sure that whatever you're doing is not going to create barriers for your audience. You want to be sure that the quality is there. And what's great about the new smartphones that have come out are the quality of the cameras in those phones. And with something as simple as Sling Studio Hub, you can utilize those to do a multi-camera shot. I'm part of the tech team at Grace Chapel. And another key driver behind Sling Studio Hub, we have a video operator at the streaming station on Sunday mornings. That's it. And so when we talk about just the size of the production team, we have a production team of 1. And that person will communicate with the front of house engineer to adjust the mix on the aux feeds that are going out to the Sling Studio to make sure that we've got a good mix on that stream. And one of the things I want to encourage you to do as well is, even if it's just a spouse or a child or another ministry partner, have somebody listen to the audio and view that live feed as it's going out. Yes, there's going to be latency. It will not be real time, but you want to be sure audio and lighting are the 2 keys. And I would put audio even above lighting. I mean, one of the things that'll cause people to tune out of your stream faster than anything is bad audio. And that doesn't necessarily have to be broken audio. It could be the audio is not loud enough. They're having to max out their phone so that they can even just barely hear. So make sure you're checking that audio. Panel, what are some other things, words of advice that you would give our attendees on just simple things that they can do or check to make sure that even if it's a very humble setup, that they've got a good quality product that they're putting out there?
Yeah, I would say test everything before you go live. Even through Facebook Live, they even have a test mode. So if you want to go ahead and do that, and then listen to it later, but test everything. If you have a band that comes in, we've honed down our worship team to just a few, 4. And so they practice on Thursday. Have 2 production guys come if or it's just yourself. Test everything before it goes out on Sundays. So that way you're not troubleshooting on the fly, even though you got to be available for that. But that way what your issues are and you can work them out 3 or 4 days ahead of time. But test everything. And like Chris was saying, the audio is 100% key. And that's the main thing. I can cut off video and listen to audio in my headphones if I'm if I'm listening to a church service, you know, I don't necessarily need to see anything. But audio is very key, but test everything before it goes out on live stream.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. You know, testing is crucial. Also, when you're you know, getting ready to, you know, embark on streaming, you know, check with your internet service provider and do some testing there as well, and make sure that, you know, you have the bandwidth available to stream properly. I know sometimes, you know, you may have your encoder on the same network as every, you know, your church or everybody else is on that network, and that can actually affect your stream as well. In our case, what we ended up doing was we put it on a dedicated network with its own cable modem, so that it's totally isolated from the network of the for the general users, and that helped out a whole lot. But yeah, you definitely want to talk to your service provider and do some testing to make sure that you have the bandwidth to support your stream. The other thing too that
Real quick
yeah.
on that, how much is enough? Can you kind of give them a little bit of guidepost on how much internet bandwidth they need?
Well, the good news is that most, you know, service providers like AT&T and Comcast now, at least in the Southeast, most of that service providers have, you know, plenty. The internet access is really fast now, so you know you're not so much limited to that. But I would say, you know, for, you know, 720 stream, I would say I would say be around 10 megabits per second. I mean, between 8 to 10 megabits per second. And that'll give you the necessary overhead for anything else that may be going on. But of course, the more the better. I know at our church we're getting like, you know, 100 up and down, and you want to definitely have up, not because your down is the stream coming down to you, but you want to be able to up your upstream. That's the stream that you want to be focusing on, because that's where you're going to be streaming out into the world. The other thing too that you want to have in place is a backup. Because even service providers go down, and we've had this experience twice. And so you want to have a backup plan, for recording your service, you're recording your stream, as well as a backup to streaming. You can, even if your service provider goes down and your internet service is still good at your church, you can still stream to maybe your Facebook page, or you can stream to your website as a backup. So I would say to make sure that you have some a capability of backing up your content, you know, whether it's just recording it locally or streaming it somewhere else.
Yeah, I think real quick on that too, just for those who are listening who may not be as tech savvy, you know, I didn't realize until probably a year ago, you know, it's very easy to check and see what you're actually getting. I mean, there are multiple ways to actually go and then run an internet speed test. Easiest through Google. If you go on Google and type in internet speed test, it'll tell you what you're getting, you know, down, and then what you're getting up. Don't assume that what you're getting down is what you're getting up. In fact, it's I think rarely so. You know, you may be getting 110 down and only be pushing 4 or 5 up, and not have nearly enough. We actually we bumped up to 30 up, and then things have gotten better for us since going to a higher speed that way. But I think it's still, you know, what we have coming down is probably actually 10 times what we have going up. And so that's probably pretty typical.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that upstream bandwidth is very important, especially many of us have plenty of bandwidth up at the church. But if you're in a situation where it's shelter in place and you're having to do your stream from your home office, you need to be sure that you've checked the quality of that stream at home. Now, the good news is most of the kids have been up till 2 or 3 or 4 a.m. and they're asleep, and so they're not gaming usually during the times that you would stream your service, if you're sticking to your traditional meeting times. But definitely you want to check with that. You might need to upgrade your home router because different routers have the ability to handle those sustained speeds differently. So as you get up to a gaming quality router, you're going to have a router within your home that can handle those sustained speeds that you may need for a live stream. a lot better. Gentlemen, as we start to wrap up our time today, you've alluded to it very early on in some of the early comments, but speak a little bit more about the quality of the product that you're putting out there from a streaming standpoint, and how you see this as a tool for extending the reach of our ministries out into the community and touching folks that may not have even felt like they could step onto a church campus for whatever reason, but might be reaching out or searching at this time.
Well, I'll chat on it just briefly. The way I approach it, I mean, of course, I have my engineering hat and then my end user hat, but the way I approach it is it's ministry, period, and it's almost like a form of worship. So I take it very seriously because I feel as though their lives are at stake that are watching this. I mean, you just don't know who's watching and what state they're in. So my prayer, as before I ever start the stream, is okay, Lord, let's make this seamless for the end user. I don't want anything to glitch or distract them from receiving the message, because it's the technical side of things, but it's also the content or the ministerial side of things. And so I want to make sure that the technical side is seamless, that there's no distractions for the viewer. And sometimes some days are better than others, but ultimately that's the goal. And I know that if that's taken care of, then that person will be able to experience and be able to be totally immersed in the worship experience and be ministered to. And that's my biggest prayer and my desire. So I treat it as a form of worship, but I know that this is very serious. Case in point, we were having some technical issues with the stream dropping out. And I was monitoring the comments, and people were like just pulling their hair out, and it just really hurt my heart, because I'm like, dang, I got to get this thing back going, because it's disruptive to their worship and it's disruptive to their experience. And so like I said before, I treat it as worship, and I tell my team that too. I said, just because nobody sees what you're doing, this is very important. The things that we're doing is very important, because there are lives that are at stake based on how well we perform. And so we pray before before the service starts, and we try to be about excellence in everything that we do when it comes to the stream and the production value. So that's kind of what we do. And it's, like I said, it's some days are better than others, but ultimately that is our goal.
Yeah, I think two words that always matter, but maybe matter in a different way, have a different type of significance right now, is quality and content. The reality is that I think, Chris, maybe you said it, you talked about barriers before. We don't want the quality of what we're doing to be a barrier to the content that we're putting out. And so if and when that's the case, then we need to revisit what we're doing. I mentioned early, we are currently engaging 3 times more people per Sunday than we were engaging before this happened. I mean, we can lament the fact, and we have, I have with my ministry team, we've lamented the fact that we are not getting together with our people. We're not seeing them face to face. It's a really frustrating situation. We're, 3 weeks in and we're already tired of it. It seems like but then we take a step back and realize what an incredible opportunity we have right now in front of us to make sure that we're using that platform in a way that honors God is I think, I would say it's constantly before us. It's certainly becoming more and more constantly before us to say, okay, we've got to use this well. So quality is incredibly important, but then the content that we're engaging people with as well. What are we doing to have them put them at a place where they want to come back and be a part of what happens again next week? And part of that for us, like I said, it is the engagement during the time. It's the engagement afterwards as well, where we're saying, here are follow-up questions. We want you to keep thinking about this. Here's your challenge this week. We're all processing what's happening right now in an ongoing basis. Many people are looking for help in processing what's happening. So what are you leaving them with toward the end of that? And that, again, for me, a lot of what I think about is content. Chris, I'm so blessed to have you as one of the leaders of our tech team. And you know, I don't have to spend much time thinking about quality because I know it's going to happen with our tech guys. And so praise God for these three men that are part of this panel today. But if you're listening as a pastor, don't forget the content that you leave people with is incredibly important too. But if your quality is not there, then that's actually a barrier to reaching people with the content that you're wanting to put out.
Yeah, I think these guys, they said it, they hit it on the nail. No need to repeat it, but it's connecting, and like Paul said, engaging with your folks, leaving them with something, you know, even if that's, you know, at the end of the service or a transition, you know, recurring that, hitting it again, go back to our website, connect with us. We want to know what your needs are. We love you. We're praying for you. Talk to us, because this is the only way we're able to talk to each other right now. And, you know, and making sure, I think Todd said it as well, you know, we do everything with excellence, you know, we do our best, and we're only doing it for the number one, you know, Most High. And so, you know, and prayer. We're operators over the equipment, but you know what? Sometimes the technical aspect of it will take over itself, and it might not be an operator era. So definitely always pray over your equipment, you know, so it can deliver the content that it needs to do to get to the folks and the men and women that need to hear the gospel for, you know, for the first time or for the 10th time. You know, we do this for only for one reason. So.
Panelists, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to share with our audience today. We trust this has been valuable to you. This content we will make available from our website, aswav.com. You can also, if for whatever reason we did not get your question answered during the webinar, go ahead and send us an email to gurus, GURUS, at aswav.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you again, panelists. And until next time, this is Chris Reese with ASW.